Kate and I had a chance to talk about this in LA, and just as a tiny bit of background, I was in Fort Hood where they made this and interviewed a lot of the real soldiers and everyone else involved in it. And it really, everyone always says this, it's a privilege. This project has been a privilege to work on. I'm going to read a quote to Kate. She doesn't know this is coming.
You have your homework done.
I always do my
homework.
gosh,
is this on?
Hello?
Okay.
Is this on? Okay. No.
We have to yell into them.
Yell into it. Okay. She does not know this is coming. This is a quote from Lieutenant Colonel Gary Volesky. Some guys have seen things no one ever wants to see. I understand now what it means when you go to a veterans ceremony and you see the old veterans get together and hug and cry, and you never really understand it. I understand it now.
I remember we spoke about this.
Why did that quote grab you, and what does it mean to you?
I think because it just crystallized so much what it means to experience war, and not just the soldiers who are away at war, but also for the family members who also experience their challenges and devastations at home. But I would not have connected to that quote, I think, as deeply, even though it's very emotional and powerful, if I had not been so intimately involved with this project and subsequently the military, and getting to know people like Gina Denomy, who I play, and Troy, her husband, and just feeling like a part of the family. I think I've been saying this a lot, but I really mean it. I think we live in a time that is so statistical and sort of desensitized. We'll see the news and it's not even covered as it used to be. Now it's just like a banner of statistics. 63 people were killed here, 40 people were in this explosion, and we sort of take it in, and I'm guilty of this too. You look at it and you're like, oh my God, that's awful. And then, the next swipe is, what's the best new restaurant in New York? You know what I mean? And it's like, we live in a time that's just, there's not enough humanity instilled in what is happening. And I felt the importance of being a part of this project was to try and be a part of the movement to instill more humanity, or to really take a minute and think, these are people who are sacrificing their lives. These are families who are sacrificing their whole existence for us to be able to sit here and talk about this show. I mean, it's extraordinary. And so to have it crystallized in such a pure way and in such an emotional way, and you get to know these soldiers, and they are armored literally and metaphorically. They're not one to show a whole lot of emotion, and I felt like that's the opening of Martha Raddatz's book, and so it literally is page 1. Get ready for this, because I'm going to show you the humanity of what it means to be at war. And that's why it moved me so much, and why I felt like it was so important to be a part of this project, and why I feel so proud to be a part of this project. You hope as an actress or an artist, to be proud of everything you do. That's the goal. But there is sometimes the rare opportunity to be proud of something on another level, and this is one of them, certainly. Yeah.
Now, at what point in this process did you and Gina start corresponding, and how do you, as an actor, how do you draw from the real person you're portraying?
Gina was incredible. I actually strangely had just a little bit of a difficult time tracking her down. Only because I think I was asking the wrong people, and then finally I should have started here. It was a bit of a fast and furious production, and I was asking certain people that were dealing with very production-based things. And finally I went to Miko, who's our incredible showrunner and who's been with this production for 9 years. This is really his labor of love. And I said, I'm trying to get in touch with the real Gina. I really would like to speak with her. And if, understandably, she finds it very odd and uncomfortable to speak to a stranger, I understand. But I'd really love to speak to her if she's open to it. And so he put me in touch with her about, maybe a couple of days before filming. And now, I had already felt very connected to the character and drawn into the story because of the way that the scripts were written and also Martha's book. It's told so personally that you are either going to be totally drawn to playing something like this or not. I mean, for me, it was just an immediate pull. But I finally got a hold of Gina, and I said, "You're a difficult person to get a hold of," and she got really embarrassed because I don't think she knew I was trying to get in touch with her. And I opened with what I said, which is, "Look, I'm a stranger to you, and though I don't feel like a stranger to you because I feel like I've been." I've been thinking of you every day and wanting to honor your life. And so with that said, I'd really love to know a few of your thoughts on different things. And we just talked for hours, and I was on Fort Hood. We shot the entire series on Fort Hood, and that's a very interesting experience into itself because it really is like a city. It's huge. And, we stood on the field where the soldiers were deployed from, so many years ago. And that's very powerful. And I think it would have been a different experience if we had shot this, on a studio in Los Angeles, for example. I mean, it really put us all there. But Gina and I spoke for hours, and then every day after that, we would speak or text. And I had never met her, but it was this, it's very strange to play someone who's alive, because you feel like you really have a connection with them that is difficult to articulate because it's, it's just, you want to honor someone, and it's a different kind of responsibility from something fictitious and something that you imagine in your mind,
Well, that's what's interesting because, one of the things that's interesting because when you're playing someone who is alive, usually they're more famous.
Mm-hmm.
But does that give you more latitude as an actor because you don't have to do her mannerisms, you're not doing an impersonation, people don't know her.
Right. I mean, she was amazing because she understood, and she said this right off the bat. She said, "Look, I know they're going to take some creative licenses, so I'm not going to be this like crazy OCD kind of micromanaging person about me," which is fun, it's a funny thing to say, but she really had enough distance, I think. And she's very, very smart. So she understood that was a necessity when putting something from script to screen, that there's gonna be a little bit of creative license. So I felt like a breath of relief with that. But what I really wanted to capture, and what I always try to capture when I'm playing someone real, is like the essence of someone. And she's such a kind, just gentle person, but also with, like, you don't want to mess with her. You know what I mean? So it's like it was a really wonderful person to inhabit for a while because she's such a beautiful light. And so I felt it was just I felt really lucky to know her and then try and bring those characteristics to Gina.
I think this was in the episode everyone saw today, but there is something you do as an actress in one of the episodes that was spectacular, and it was when she's taking his sweatshirt out of the dryer and buries her face in it to just breathe in his scent, thinking, I may never smell him again.
Yeah.
Was that written in, or did you come up with that to hold it? And
that was written, but it was a discussion on, because I think you've seen this. She gets tomato sauce on the I can't remember if that's this one or not.
Yeah,
but anyway,
that was my problem. I couldn't remember which
Well,
episode.
anyway, there was a whole discussion on sort of how, at what point she has the sweatshirt, and is she standing up or is she sitting down? And I just thought, I'm married, and I'm so lucky to be married to like my best friend, and so it's not such a leap for me to really like think about what that would be like. And I just felt like you would just be brought to your knees on that, and It's just something so you just wouldn't want to let go of someone's essence in a way. Like, it reminds me of this really weird experience happened to me once where I was very close with my grandmother, and she was killed instantly in a car accident when I was really young, and she wore a very particular perfume. And when they were going through some of her clothes, like, she left me this like very beautiful suede jacket, and I had it for years. And then one day I just kind of happened to reach into a pocket, and there was a tissue there, and it was like her perfume. And it was just like, it really does, it just knocks the wind out of you and like really just brings you to your knees, because you feel like, oh, there you are. You know, it's like, it's almost like it's a part of your breath. So I felt like that was a moment that reminded me of that, you know.
Scent is that one of the senses that lasts our deepest memories.
Yes.
and goes back. Now, especially with this crowd, I wouldn't say this with, you know, a more general crowd, but with actors, I want to talk a little bit about, you mentioned being at Fort Hood, and it is so different.
Mm-hmm.
First, how long the shooting was, and what it was like really being there, because this was not being at the Ritz and having turned down service.
No, I mean, I actually enjoy experiences that are as authentic as possible to what we're trying to create. And I think every actor on this production felt the same way. I mean, so myself and Sarah Wayne Callies and a few of the other actresses lived, because we were only there for the first 3 or 4 weeks. They shot all of the homestead up front, and then they shot all of the battle for the next 3.5 months. And so we were put in a little hotel called the Shiloh Inn, that was just off of base, but it felt like we were right on base. And everyone else lived literally on base. So Michael Kelly he shared a house, you know, kind of almost like a duplex with another high-ranking military officer and his family. So, and Jeremy's sister did as well. So their kids were playing with the military kids, and really felt this kind of 360 experience. And but it's the type of thing, like I said, that if we had shot this anywhere else, it just gets into your blood. You know, I mean, it really does. Like, you're waking up with the military, and like, we're sort of driving to work before, you know, probably about 4 a.m, and they're starting their runs, and you hear the sounds and you smell the smells. And so you feel the community of Fort Hood and what it means to be a part of the military. And what was interesting to me, and what was very important for my character, is that it's not just about, you know, soldiers being on base and going to war. It really is a full family affair. Like, you do sacrifice your life to be a part of the military so that they can serve all of us. And that was the profound, you know, kind of conclusion that I will take with me for the rest of my life, is this kind of very intimate experience with the military that I hadn't had before. My grandfather was in the military, but it was so long ago that, you know, he really rarely talked about it, because he was a tough guy. But it's an appreciation and a gratitude for the full sacrifice that these men and women make for us.
And just that character alone, your baby is 4 days old,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a C-section,
Mm-hmm.
and now goodbye, and it'll be fine.
Yes, and I talked to Gina a lot about that. I said, so just break down the timeline for me again. And she said, well, we didn't think Merrick would. She's very logical, you know, like you can tell that she has a lot of emotion, but she's also very like logical and technical. And she said, well, we didn't know if Merrick would come before Troy deployed. So we were just happy that he came before Troy left. And even though it was only, you know, 2 days before, so we literally we were in the hospital, and then we went to have Merrick baptized, and then we were literally on the deployment field, and I was saying goodbye. And she's saying it like this. And I said, well, was it as, was it difficult? Like, what, you know, and she really did bring up the point, which I think a lot of the families felt, which was, we thought this was a peacekeeping mission. So you always have trepidation, I think, when someone goes away, because you think, well, anytime anyone leaves you that you love, you just, you know, you miss them immediately. But she said, we had no idea what was to come. so.
Because they had gone out on a mission to be the security for sanitation workers.
Absolutely.
And now you're ambushed.
Yes.
I'm going to switch gears just a little bit because I know the clock is going down, and I just want to talk about your career a little.
20 years this year. Oh, thank you.
Also, you made your
I held on. I'm like, you can't get rid of me. You have to do that in Hollywood. Well, just white knuckle it.
When you made your debut with Robert Redford,
I mean, I was 14, yeah.
Did you realize, first of all, at the time, who he was? He may have just not been in your world then.
Well, I knew a little bit who he was because I loved Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, but my mom really knew who he was. I remember because I had to fly to, and just to backtrack a little bit, I grew up like a very normal kid in a small town on the East Coast and loved to ride horses. It was my life. I asked my parents if I could like live in the stall with the horse that I like to ride. And they were like, no, you can. And I was like, well, can I just stay there as long as possible? So I would literally like, as soon as the crack of dawn happened, I would just be there. And if I had to go to school, I'd go to school, and I'd go right back to the barn until they were like kicking me out the door. I was obsessed. And I still am. I just can't do it as much. But so when they're casting for a movie like horse riding or surfing or ballet or something like that, it's a very small inner circle in terms of like the stables kind of hearing that there's a movie being cast that they want real horse riders of that age. And so word kind of went around the barn, and I lived in Connecticut at the time, and they were holding an open casting call in New York City. And so I took the train, and I'd never even read a script before in my life, and I was given some lines to read, and I just read them in the open casting call and left, and they called me back, and then they started calling me back, and I just thought, oh my God, like really don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm terrified that they're going to figure out that I truly, like I'm not an actor. I don't know what I'm doing. And finally they said, well, Mr. Redford would like to fly you out to Los Angeles to read with him. And now I'm like, I'm good. Like, I'm like so terrified. I'm like, now they're really going to figure it out. My mom was like, we're going to LA to meet Robert Redford. And so we went, and I just remember, it was a big moment, and he's such a kind, gentle-hearted man, and was very, very sweet with me. And just the whole shoot I fell in love immediately. First of all, I always say it was one love that really segued, my love of horseback riding segued into my professional love of acting and
but then
film
you
industry.
Took off 2 years to finish high school, right?
Yeah, so I was, I'm an only child, and my parents are incredible because they really did instill like a very hardworking, determined, characteristics into me. They said, look, no one's going to hand anything to you in life. Like, you really have to work hard for it, and just do your best every day. I remember my dad used to say, every morning, if you can look at yourself in the mirror when you wake up and you can say, I'm doing the best I can, like this is literally the best I can do, it's my level of excellence, then you're going to live a good life, and just do that every day. And so that was instilled in me. So as a high schooler, I was just very academic and, trying to kind of succeed in high school. And I did bit parts here and there. I did a movie called Remember the Titans, which was over a summer. So I was able to shoot over summers, and I did a little TV show called Young Americans that was for, at the time, called the WB, which is now the CW, which Carolyn Bernstein worked at, and she's now very, very high ranked in that. Yeah, so it's weird. It's like I said, you hang in long enough and you're like, oh, I've known you for 20 years. That's great. We're working together again.
The WB with the frog.
Yes, exactly. Oh, yes. Dawson's Creek time,
That's right. What advice did Robert Redford give you? Because you were a kid, and as you said, you hadn't had the acting background. Did he give you any advice, or anyone else on the
He
set?
was very against, and this was interesting. He was... and I think you can see this in his own work. He was very supportive of a natural ability. Like he did not encourage me to fall into the world of like acting teachers and acting classes. And so he said, just feel it, and so, and I think you can see it in his work. Like, he's a very kind of intuitive actor. And I think for him, that's the world that he really loves in performances, is that kind of very like intuitive, kind of emotional, pure way of performing. And I guess everyone's different. That's the thing. It's kind of hard to give advice on acting because some people, like, method really works for them, or some people, hardly know their lines, and they have to have it like taped on someone else's forehead, and you're like, well, how are you doing this brilliant like performance? Like, that's so unfair. You know what I mean? So it's just, everyone has a different way of going about it, so
Now,
I've had that happen to me before. I was
have
like,
you really?
I didn't do it, but I had someone else who was like, can you just like hold the lines up? And I was like, yeah, okay.
Do you want to name the person?
No, never. No.
Do you? What's your process in going into an audition? Do you still get nervous?
Oh, yes, I do. I am envious of people who are like totally, blasé and sort of relaxed about it. I get really nervous. I think whenever one is like obviously judged or critiqued, I just think that's difficult. I have so much empathy. Like, I can't even watch like Chopped. I love watching Chopped, but I'm like, they go up and they're like, your dish is like terrible, and I'm like, oh my God, these poor people, they did their best. I'm like, so I just have I'm like too much, I think, empathy and compassion. And actually, my husband's a filmmaker, and he has literally never auditioned an actor for that reason. He'll meet with them and feel like, okay, I feel like this person has the essence of what I, want to capture in the film. But he too thinks it's a brutal and cruel process.
It is a brutal and cruel process.
But I do it, of course I have to do it. It's part of my job. So it's, you have to sometimes do things that you're not exactly wild about doing in your own profession. But, it's not something that I'm like skipping in the door, like, hello, I'm here. I'm so excited.
Come judge me.
Yeah, but please. You got chopped. Okay, you've been chopped. 99.9% of the time I've been chopped.
But I think I just wanted to clarify and go back a moment when you did take a break. And although you have worked so steadily these 20 years, it seems to me like it's a very normal workload, as far as anything would be normal in this business. Do you very purposefully build in breaks and say, I need to breathe a little, I need to ride my horse?
No, I mean, I'm a total workaholic. So I love working, but I think I started to feel like I didn't want to fall out of love with what I do. And there's certain things in this industry that are tough to take. And, I started when I was 14 years old. So when you're coming of age and then also a professional, so you're trying to figure out like, who am I as a person then, and also who am I as a professional, and how do these blend, and like, am I feeling good? Okay, am I not feeling good because of me? Like, I just don't know who I am, or am I not feeling good because of the work I'm doing, or what is it? So I guess I've always just tried to navigate life, and my life has always been work, but it was very difficult for me to take jobs that I just didn't feel like totally in love with. And that's a real difficult kind of road to take, because one can always work, but to find the things that you just feel like, I love this and I want to be a part of it. And I was also a little bit, I was fortunate in that something like Blue Crush, which was my first big break, was a role in a movie that I was so deeply in love with. I mean, it was like though I had like truly never touched a surfboard before, I was cast in that movie, and that was like a big, when I auditioned for it numerous times, and I said, I have to be this person. Like, it's just, there's not another option. I must do this, like, to everyone. And they said, yes, but you don't surf. And that's like, obviously, a skill that you have to possess to play this role. And I said, okay, well, what is your plan? And they said, well, we're going to audition real surf girls and try and get someone who can act. And I said, well, how long will that take? And they said about 4 weeks. And so I just literally went into the Yellow Pages and found a surf instructor in Malibu and just started surfing like 6-7 hours a day, and like every day, 7 days a week. And then I called up the powers that be, and I said, "Would you mind coming to watch me surf?" And they did, and I was awful. I was terrible, but I think it was just the sheer determination and focus was something that I was really lucky that people like John Stockwell and Brian Grazer rolled the dice on me. I always tell them, like, you took a chance on an unknown girl and an unknown variable, and really, helps me launch my career. So my, deep desire for my dreams happened to coincide with this character who had different dreams, but that was an experience that was just like all of me went into that. So when you're 18 years old and that's, one of your first experiences, like you're constantly chasing that feeling, like that's the ultimate. And so you kind of learn like, well, okay, it might not always be that way, but I need to have a percentage of that, so that's probably, it's a weird way of answering your question, but I've just tried to be really true to myself, I suppose, is the long of the short of it.
Since I think many people in this room still go on auditions, and what I wanted to ask a two-pronged question here. First, how you deal with the rejection when it does come, and what advice you would give to them and encouragement.
Oh, well, like I said, I mean, for me, it's 99.9% of my career is a rejection. Even Blue Crush, I was like, you just can't say no. Like, I just, they wanted to. Understandably, they wanted to because I didn't possess the skill they needed. But I guess I would just say, like, and I have a stepdaughter who's 19, and she's an actress. And I always say to her, you have to want it more than anybody else. And I don't mean that in like a vindictive or like weirdly competitive way. It should be inclusive. Like there's enough room for everyone, but you have to just want it so bad that, it's like a laser. It's like athletic. This career it's a marathon, and I'm sure that's a metaphor that's used often, but it really is. Like you have to just keep in mind that if you stack work against work and against work and against work, you'll start building a foundation for something. And so maybe, and this is maybe where I, went a little wrong, is that you don't have to put everything on one thing. You know what I mean? Just keep stacking it. And like, I always say, keep grinding it out. It's like, I love watching football. Like it's one of my favorite sports. And Dallas Cowboys is my favorite team. And like, you see, like, Tony Romo's a good friend of mine, and you just see him like grinding it out, and like his back is breaking. You're just like, oh my God, like, and it's to achieve a dream is not easy. It's really not. You have to just put everything of yourself into it, and let the highs be high and let the lows be low, but don't let either of them affect you too much. Like the lows, just say, okay, this will pass. Like give yourself that night or that week or whatever, but like move on. And the highs, just say, this is amazing, but also move on. And then you have it's healthy. It's a good grounded balance,
I think that's a great place to end.
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.